the other side. What they did not expect to see was a raging storm on the way. The disciples were probably not nearly as excited in the middle of the voyage as they may have been in the beginning. Although God often calls us to launch out on a new destination, He usually does not let us know what's going to happen on the way. We leave the security of where we were and start out for the blessings on the other side. But it is often in the middle where we encounter the storms. The middle is often a place of testing. The storm that the disciples experienced was no little April shower or harmless summer squall, but a storm of hurricane proportions. The waves were not gently rolling and tossing. They were beating the boat with such fury that it quickly filled with water. That would be enough to frighten anyone. The storm was in full force and Jesus was asleep. Does that sound familiar? Have you ever had times when you felt as if you were sinking fast and Jesus was asleep? Have you prayed and heard nothing from God? You spent the time with Him and tried to sense His presence, but yet you felt nothing. You searched for an answer, but no matter how hard you struggled, the winds and the waves and the storm raged on, and you didn't know what to do about it. Sometimes we refer to those seasons as the midnight hour or the dark night of the soul. At times like these, when it looks like the boat is sinking with us in it, we must use our faith. Jesus simply wants His disciples to believe in Him. He said, "Let us go to the other side." He expected them to believe that if he said it, that it would happen. But like us, they were afraid. Jesus calmed the storm, but He rebuked the disciples for their lack of faith. It is vital for our future to grow in faith, which shows confidence and trust in God. We must learn to conquer our fear and press on the other side. We must also learn to have peace and joy in the midst of the storm, not only when it passes. And at that moment, I remembered that God had given me the vision of the little boy. And I texted Jarrod and I said, "Jarrod, God gave me a vision of a little boy running across the yard to me, not in a wheelchair." And I think that's when Jarrod's attitude started changing too.
Yeah, I started getting just one text after another from friends and family and lots of scripture, a lot of support, a lot of encouragement. And, I talked about, who thinks a positive attitude is a good thing. Well, I had a pretty negative one there for the first couple of days, but it slowly started changing with all these texts of support and all these phone calls. I mean, my phone was constantly ringing off the hook, and I was taking every one of them because I needed it. But, I still didn't want to let go of all the negative thoughts. I mean, they were really strong and, they were powerful. They really were. I mean, the devil had me in a pretty good spot down there. And he was working me over. But, it left me all at once. I mean, after Denise sent me that text and reminded me of that vision that she had of the boy running to her after, while she was mowing, before we even knew we was pregnant. My attitude changed for good. I mean, I was on board with what God was doing. I was upbeat. I knew Elijah was going to be just fine. And no matter what the doctors were saying, it didn't really matter. I embraced the fact that God was in control and had the situation handled just fine, and I started countering all the negative comments with positive ones. Every time there was an obstacle, Elijah overcome it, and you know what? We knew that he would do it. And then finally, it just seemed like forever, but it was probably a day and a half, 2 days before Denise got to come down. What was it? Thursday? Yeah, 2 days. She finally got to come down to Wichita, and I think it was probably a little bit early for her, but they knew she wanted to get down there, so I think they doped her up pretty good. Gave her some ice packs and sent her on her way. And that wiped out any foothold that the devil thought he had left on this situation. I mean, she walked in the NICU, and for those of you that know Denise, she's got a very uplifting and positive personality. And together we changed the whole mentality and attitude of all the doctors and nurses and everyone involved in Elijah's care. I mean, it was that quick. I mean, all the prayers worked. Positive attitude was there, and we brushed everything off. And he was out of the NICU in 11 days, guys. I mean, we thought we was digging in for a month or more because and everything they were telling us, it should have been. But, yeah, 2 weeks minimum, but more likely a month, maybe more. And so I think it just floored everybody. I don't think those doctors knew what was coming. They really didn't.
And they keep trying, like you said, they keep trying to look for things to be wrong with him. And now I feel like I need to be like Rafiki and hold him up like Simba on Lion King, you know. Anyway, real quick, I wanted to share some of the text, just because they meant so much to me. Lene sent a text and said that Mark had called the 700 Club, and here, you read it.
Mark called the 700 Club and asked them to agree in Jesus' name that Eli was whole and healthy with no side effects from his birth.
It just meant a lot. And then, here.
Another one Lene sent, Joshua 23:10. God will fight for Elijah Spillman. And Cheryl, Psalms 91:11 through 12. For he shall give his angels charge over you to keep you in all your ways. In their hands they shall bear you up. All of...
she just said
oh,
yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And then...
Your handwriting's so nice.
Here. and then I can remember at one time, before I left Hayes, Kara had told me that Micah said, don't put your faith in the doctors. No matter if it's good news or bad news, God already gave you the news that you needed. And I didn't understand it quite, I think, before I left. But I can just remember when the doctors, they would give us reports, and I just was trying to focus on what God had given us. And then in 1 Corinthians 2:5, it says, "My faith shall not stand in the wisdom of men, but the power of God." And then one of the before we got our good news, Lene texted and said, "Good morning. We were watching Joyce Meyer last night."
Wait. Now this is the good news for all of you that don't know. Saturday, we had an EEG on Thursday to see if he had seizure activity, and it showed that he did in the right lobe of his brain. And on Saturday morning, they had an MRI to show what kind of damage was in his brain, and they were expecting a lot. And we didn't get the report until Dr. Shaw came in about midnight Saturday night. We waited until he showed up. We wanted to know. We didn't want to wait until the next morning. And this was in what Lene had texted before we got this report.
It said Joyce Meyer's verse was Mark 11:24. Whatsoever things I desire when I pray, believe that I receive them and I shall have them. Something good is going to happen today.
Believe first and see later.
And then Kara had texted one that said, this one is awesome. When you stand in faith, the devil will heat the furnace 7 times hotter. But that is when Jesus shows up to walk you through. And when you come out, you won't even have the scent of smoke on you. And that's what I just feel like. He doesn't have... No, he has nothing.
And then on that MRI, when we did get the good news, and it was good news, Dr. Shaw come in and walked into a private room with the nurse, shut the door, and I was like, nope, this isn't going to be a bad report. Because usually when somebody takes you into a private room to give you news, especially when you're waiting on something that important, you're just automatically thinking, this is going to be horrible. Especially with the nurse coming in to help explain what's going on. But we felt at peace about it. We knew it was going to be fine, and he started talking, goes, well, we took the MRI to show what kind of swelling there might have been on the brain, because that's what they're looking for, because swelling on the brain causes seizures. Seizures don't cause the swelling on the brain. So, anyway, we had a debate about that, but I'm going with that story. So anyway, they did the MRI, and it come back showing 2 minor areas of swelling. So minor that they had to keep cutting the pictures down of the brain to find it. If you took a picture just of the top of your brain, they couldn't see squat. Nothing wrong. And so they had to dig, and they showed us. And I'm a numbers guy, so I pressed the doctor, and I said, okay. I said, I see you're saying minor swelling instead of major. I said, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being just awful, we're going to have major issues down the road here. What do you think? And he goes, 1, maybe a 2. And I thought, this kid ends up with math issues or ADD or any of those kind of things. That's going to be perfectly normal. So, we got a really good report.
I want to read one more text that Kara sent because it's from Luke 1:7, and it defines the spirit and the power of Elijah. It says, "He will be a man with the spirit and power of Elijah. He will prepare the people for the coming of the Lord. He will turn the hearts of the fathers to their children, and he will cause those who are rebellious to accept the wisdom of the godly." So, I also want to go through some of the small things. Quote, small things. He's the big thing, but some of the small things. The nurse or a doctor came in and had told us that, he might not, sucking might be something that he has a problem with, and we might have to work with him on that. And he did not have a problem at all.
These are some of the miracles God provided. Just a kind of a short list.
Yes.
Things that Kara and Denise had jotted down.
We have wonderful neighbors that took care of our Girl Scout cookies for us. Just silly things like that has happened. Let's see what else.
This is a big one.
Oh yeah, we decided to stay in Hayes. If my water would have broke on its own, Elijah wouldn't have been here. So the doctors, there was. The pediatrician was right there. My doctor was right there. The anesthesiologist was right there. And 2 neonatal nurses happened to be on staff
Shift
that
change.
day. Yeah.
And it was Monday morning, and not a single person was missing or had to be called.
Yep.
And if one of them, and what they're saying, or if it would have been on an evening or a weekend, he probably wouldn't have made it either, even though he was in Hayes.
And also in Lauren's class, they had, and she could probably get in trouble, but one of the teachers allowed them to have a moment of silence. So I just thought that was awesome in school that they allow that to happen.
You want me to go on?
I don't care. We can be.
That's about it.
Yeah, it's pretty long. And relationships have been healed from this whole thing. There has been... It's amazing that what God has done, not just in his life, in everybody's surrounding.
And to reiterate, they are being hard-pressed to find anything wrong, and they keep trying. We went down, like I said, to Wichita, and I wasn't real happy with this lady, but she probably had a lot of patients stacked up, but we have to make